So today is all about the analytical report. If you see inside of Canvas, you should be able to go to assignments, you should be able to get the rubric and the description. So in my opinion, the description does a pretty good job at going through everything. So basically what you're doing is you're going to be making a business case for a company, and you're also going to be presenting it. 18 to 25 minute presentation. Any less than 18, slight penalty. Any more than 25, I literally stop you. Okay, I don't want to do that. Okay, so my advice is when you're doing a presentation, there's a clock right there. I look at the clock sometimes. I'm not going to count off if you glance at the clock. Now, if you stare at the clock and you're not making any eye contact, that'd be a more substantial problem. But just looking at the clock occasionally to see where you are, that's fine. If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation mode on the secondary monitor also has the time. No note cards. I'm going to go ahead and say you can't use note cards. It's only been one time this semester I've used a note card, and it was for one slide. Okay, so if I can get away with only using one once, I think you can get away with never using one for a single, right around 20-minute presentation. Okay, does that mean you have to practice? Yeah, probably. Okay. Now, good question to ask is, how am I grading your presentation? Was it a good business presentation? Okay. Do you address everything you need to? Are you reading the slides off directly? Are you making it interesting? Are you making it engaging? What sort of body language? What sort of slides? Is this font big enough for a presentation? Way too small. Okay, go ahead and write this down. I don't want to see any font smaller than 30. Okay, you put 28 font, it's not big enough. Okay, it's got to be 30 or bigger on your PowerPoint. I'd suggest 32 or bigger, but 30 or bigger. Okay, so basically that's the presentation in a nutshell. Y'all have done presentations before, right? No. Okay, the good news is that I don't require every one of your group to participate in the presentation. Okay, you can split the task up however you want. Ultimately, everyone's getting the same grade. There's one exception, which we'll go through in a little bit. But for the most part, let's say you have one or two people who are very outgoing, they love to present, they love to talk in front of people. It's totally okay with me if they handle the presentation. Okay? Now, let's say I have one person who's shy and they like to cry every time they present. That's a serious thing. People do that sometimes. Very small percentage of people, but I've seen it happen. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front, I would strongly recommend against having that person present. Because, I'll be honest, I grade what you do. Okay? Do you think I would grade someone well if they were bawling their eyes out up here? I would not. Okay? So my advice is, find people who can do different things. Because in the business world, are you going to be doing something, that you're bad at? Maybe sometimes. But most of the time, what are you going to be doing? Stuff that you're good at, right? So my advice is, find people who you can work with well. No, I don't require that. You can have the worst group ever. That's up to you, You'll have the ability to tell me 4 or 5 people you want to work with. So I'll leave that up to you all. Like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit. I will not accept any late work. I only accept the work via Canvas. This time there are no file restrictions, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, don't submit anything crazy. So for instance, let's say you're using a Mac. Let's say instead of using Microsoft Office, you're using the iWork suite. So Pages, is it Keynote? I think it's Keynote. Those sorts of applications. I don't care if you use those, but you need to make sure that you're submitting the work in a format that is a relatively standardized format. I would personally suggest sticking to .pptx for PowerPoint, or sticking to .docx for Word documents, or better than that, I would actually suggest you submit a PDF. Because a PDF, the formatting is set. Okay, there is no me editing the format or anything like that. So 11:59, Friday, November 18th. That's 2 weeks to work on it. We're probably not going to get a whole lot of work done today other than maybe an initial meeting with your team, determining how you want to split things up, how you want to work, how you want to handle deliverables. So I will not accept anything after 11:59 p.m. on Friday, November 18th. Now, personally, I think 2 weeks is enough time to do it. In my opinion, if it were me, I could probably knock this out in a good 2 or 3 hours. Okay? Now, I don't expect you to be able to knock it out in a good 2 or 3 hours, but I think that with 6 class periods, I'm pretty sure that you would be able to get this completed in a timely fashion. Okay? Even if you're working by yourself. So, talk about what the project actually is. We talked about the presentation a little bit. Selecting a publicly traded firm. So, that's another thing we're going to do today is think about a publicly traded firm. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and have those so that way you're not all presenting the same firm. Okay. Research the firm in business articles. So I've got some sources here that I would suggest using. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you may see that Bloomberg is missing. Bloomberg is a pretty common business news source. They have a lot of business and investing news. They're excluded for a reason. Okay. Several times they've published completely fabricated stories. Okay, I don't stand for fabricated stories. So no Bloomberg. Okay. Now if that upsets you, I'm sorry. But the fact is they've manipulated the market with stuff like the Supermicro story. Look it up sometime if you're interested. They accused the firm of having spyware, not in software, but in hardware built into servers. Okay, that cut a company's stock in over 50% of its value. I don't stand for that. Therefore, I suggest you use these sources. Okay, like I say, it's not a statement on Bloomberg the person, it's a statement on his news organization. I don't think it's accurate. I like his terminals. He's got Bloomberg terminals that are very robust, that have lots of features. You can find lots of information and data in them. I don't like his news source at all. Okay, so don't use it. I'll list some suggestions up here, though. You're also going to be getting the firm's 10K and quarterly filings from the SEC Edgar database. So I'll show you all that very quickly. I put a link to it in here. You can also, of course, use the search engine of your choice to navigate to the SEC Edgar database. And I'm actually going to do this in a new tab. Let me go back so I don't lose my place. There we go. It's just been a little bit slow. So anyway, come to Edgar. Go to either Edgar Full Text Search, or what I recommend is go ahead and finding out their ticker. And let's just put a random one in. Someone throw me a company. Okay, INTC, right? Intel Corporation. Okay. So when we do that, it's going to load up eventually here. Hopefully it'll be faster when you're doing it. You can see their 10K. So this is a 10Q, that's for quarterly. Okay, some of what we'll be doing is quarterly, some of what we'll be doing is annual. Okay, so here's a 10K down here. And I don't expect you to read the whole thing. It's going to be right around 100 pages, anywhere from like 60 to even 300 something. Okay, this particular one is 119 pages. I don't expect you to read this whole thing. Okay, forward-looking sections, this is going to be important to read. What you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out information about the company. So at the top up here, it's going to tell you their actual name, their exact name. It's going to tell you where they're incorporated. It's going to tell you where their headquarters are. So for Intel, it's going to be Santa Clara, California. It's going to tell you their address. Should tell you their CEO somewhere. You have to look through it and find that sort of stuff. But anyway, in the rubric, it says what you're looking for. Okay, and you can search it. Search for CEO. Well, eventually it'll come up. It's doing a little bit slow right now. Wow, that doesn't seem to. Anyway, you'll be able to find it in here without too much trouble. It should list their board members on here. This guy right here, Chief Executive Officer Bob Swan. Okay. So there's a lot of information you'll need like that. certainly their financial performance, which is probably going to be in tables at the end of this, I'd imagine. Okay, this is all their directors and stuff. Table of contents. Different stuff they filed. Here we go. Okay, it's going to be either, in this case, this is by quarter. So you have quarter 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. And you can use this sort of source for the financial information. You're definitely going to be citing this for the company information. There's nothing more accurate in this. Okay. It's a federal crime to lie in one of these. Okay. Hypothetically, the CEO and CFO could land in prison if they lie on this. Now, has that ever happened? Seldom. Okay. But it's possible. It's a federal crime. Okay. There's a lot of different opinions about the SEC. I recommend if you have the time and you're interested in it, look up what someone like Elon Musk says about the SEC. Okay, an interesting perspective on it. But this is what they do. Okay, so is this a boring document? You betcha. Okay, like I said, don't read the whole thing. Just find the key information you need in here. All right, that's pretty much the annual report. Go back to the project description. So that's the annual report. You're going to be doing forecasting with 3 different methods. So I listed off some different methods of forecasting. You could even use naive forecasting if you wanted, okay? So you got 3 different things: quarterly revenue, quarterly profit, quarterly stock price. For each of those 3 things, you're doing 3 different forecasting methods. Okay, does that make sense? So, quarterly revenue. How many forecasting methods do we do for it? 3, right? Quarterly profit. It's going to be another 3. Quarterly stock price. Another 3. So in total, you're doing 9 forecasts. Does that make sense? And for these, you can use seasonal naive for all 3. You can use simple exponential smoothing for all 3. That's totally fine. You can repeat them, but they need to have different results because revenue and profit and stock price are not the same thing, are they? Okay? I'll leave it up to you how you want to do that. Okay? You don't have to use the data from Edgar for that. You could certainly go to other places like MarketWatch, NASDAQ, even Yahoo Finance. I mean, anything like that that you can get the data from, I'm cool with. For the company-specific things, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're using the company's 10K report. Okay? Properly cite everything, APA. I'm going to strongly recommend use some sort of citation manager. I'm not requiring it, of course. I think it's a lot easier to work with a citation manager than doing it by hand. Okay? So I'll give you guys an example. Okay? So in my work, do you think I cite anything manually? You know how many thousands of citation styles there are? When I submit something to one journal, they may use their own. Okay? I'm not going to sit there and learn where the commas and periods go. I don't care. Okay, my citation manager, I go up to the top and I say, use the MISQ citation style. Use the APA citation style. Use the ISR citation style. There's so many. You're using APA. You can probably use a lot of different citation managers. Having said that, am I going to be going through your sources with a fine-tooth comb looking for a misplaced comma or period? I'm not a loser, am I? Okay? Having said that, if they're egregiously wrong, that's a bigger problem. Okay? Like I say, some tiny little problems, not a big deal. For instance, let's say you didn't put an author on something, and it had an author. That'd be a big problem, would it not? Okay? So that's pretty much the general information. We'll go through the specific parts as we go. He who does not work shall not eat. Okay? If your entire group approaches me and says that you did nothing, you get nothing. Now, that's not an absolvation of the responsibility of your group to submit a completed project. Okay? So let's say that you have a group member who doesn't do anything, and they were responsible for, say, the slides, and you don't have any slides by the due date. Okay? That part is still going to be graded, So my suggestion is have deadlines, and if someone doesn't meet a deadline, someone's going to have to pick up the slack. Is that fair? I don't know if it's fair or not. But I think it's reasonable to state that up front. Okay? So, I can give someone a 0. I could certainly do that. I suggest you communicate early and often. Okay? But ultimately, I'm grading what I receive. Does that make sense? So, I think it's quite possible for one person to do this entire project by themselves in the time period. Okay, it's not a huge project. So basically, that's how that works. Deliverables, business report. Okay, it's a business report. What should the font be? Shouldn't be anything other than 12-point Times New Roman, right? Okay, don't be submitting me anything but 12-point Times New Roman. I'm telling you that up front. Okay, not putting a length requirement on it, but you need to make sure that you're conveying everything you need to. I would estimate it'll probably be between about 10, 15 pages, maybe even a little bit more. Having said that, it's not going to be 10, 15 pages of pure text, okay? A lot of it's going to be spacing and stuff like that. You always start off with a title page, obviously. Tell what the company is, that sort of stuff. Really basic, group name. Right after that, table of contents. Okay, table of contents isn't listed, but that's common sense. I recommend you build it automatically with Word, but do whatever you want. Then, right after that, you have the executive summary. Okay, so the executive summary is going to be where you provide all of the information about the company. Relevant firm characteristics, CEO, president, headquarters location, industry, major products that they sell, a little bit of company history. You're probably not going to get all of this from the 10K. You're going to have to go to some external sources for some of this. Annual revenue for the most recent fiscal year. Annual profit for the most recent fiscal year. Major changes or updates. And again, major changes or updates are almost certainly going to come from the business news articles. You're going to have to find those on your own. I don't think that's too much to ask. Maybe you think it is. I don't think it is, though. I think you can probably do that in about a day. An executive summary is only going to be a couple paragraphs, okay? You have one paragraph talking about the major firm characteristics, maybe one paragraph talking about their revenue and profit, maybe one paragraph talking about their products and services, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs talking about their major changes, updates, that sort of stuff. So, does that make sense? Like I said, I'll take questions at the end. So, I'll say that, 3 to 5 paragraphs. Sometimes I really think I do well. Anyway, obviously, you're going to have a database part. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at the company, say, what are they selling? How are they selling it? How might a database help? So you're going to think about all that, make an ERD. Okay, now, like I say, this is where I suggest you work together with your group. Okay, we talked about ERDs in here. We've done examples. Some of you did well. Some of you have some room for improvement. Okay, my suggestion is you're all getting the same grade. Have the person who did well in the ERD do the ERD. It's up to you. Okay? So you're going to follow all the standard guidelines that we covered. Describe the relationships and variables. Okay? So you're going to go through each of the different entities. You're going to describe each of those attributes. Say what they are. Say why they're included. Say how the firm uses it. Okay? You need a paragraph for each entity to do this. On top of that, you're also going to have relationships you're describing. You can do that all in a single paragraph for just relationships, or if you were so inclined, maybe you want to do relationships within inside the paragraph. I'm not micromanaging you on that. You have the flexibility. You're going to describe the relationship. So for instance, you say student takes one-to-many courses. Course is taken by one-to-many students. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for there. Does that make sense? You make a SQL script to create the database. So for all the different tables, you're going to have to provide me those creation statements. So you can look back to examples that we've done. You can look to the W3 Schools tutorials that I posted. A lot of options for that. Following Mysql Syntax. Okay, Mysql Syntax is important. So don't give me something that's access specific because there's going to be some tiny differences. I don't think you'll run into those for table creation other than how we define primary keys. My suggestion for you is to just use the MySQL examples that we used in class together. I gave you those scripts. Then you're going to have a paragraph that goes through why you selected this model, and most importantly, how is it going to help the firm from a financial standpoint? Okay, this is a class in the College of Business or a School of Business, right? I care about business. Okay, profits are one of the greatest things on earth. Okay, revenue makes the world go round. You're going to describe how the database helps it. Okay, then you're going to have a data dictionary. A data dictionary is basically going to be a table that has each of your different tables inside of it. You're going to list the columns, define the columns, and the data type. Okay, really self-explanatory. It's just a table of all your tables, basically. Does that make sense? Okay. Forecast. So like I say, you've got a lot of flexibility here. You can use lots of different sources for this. I'm not limiting your sources where you acquire the financial information. Make sure you're using quarterly data for quarterly forecast. Okay. Quarterly profit, quarterly stock price, quarterly revenue. So don't use annual data for this. Does that make sense? So, for each of those three things, you're going to have a paragraph for quarterly profit. You're going to describe maybe a simple exponential smoothing. We received this. And you can make up your own weights. Okay, if you're using like weighted moving average, make up your own weights. Explain why you selected those weights. Maybe you want to place more emphasis on the most recent quarter. Maybe you want to place less emphasis on the most recent quarter. Explain it. Okay? So you're going to have three paragraphs here. One for each of the three things that you're forecasting. Does that make sense? And for each of the three things you're forecasting, how many forecasts are you doing? 3. Okay? Exactly right. So, lastly, bibliography. Like I say, I suggest using a citation manager. Personally, you can tell I use Mendeley. I'm not requiring you to use Mendeley, but it's a pretty decent one. There's lots of different options out there. Zotero, EndNote. The problem with these is that if one person has it and the others don't, and they pass the file around, it could get some corruption issues. My advice is to have one person do it at the end. Okay? Now, certainly keep note of what source you've used where, but, ultimately, leaving that up to you. Okay, presentation slides. Go through these kind of quickly. It's really self-explanatory. You're going to have a title slide. You're going to intro, talk about what you're going to be discussing, your different topics. And then you have all your different topic slides. Okay? You may be able to fit everything on one slide. You may be able to fit everything on 5 slides. I'm not saying you got to have 10 slides. No more than have as many slides as you need. Okay? I'm grading your presentation. How long should your presentation be? 20 minutes. Okay? You can have it be between 18 and 25 without penalty. Okay, I've described the penalty. Not everyone needs to participate. Okay? See that? What does that mean? It means cool. How about that? Okay, presentation discussion, do a good job on it. Really self-explanatory. Not going to go through the rubric. What I will say is I'm not grading your grammar as a category. Instead, what I'm doing is if you have between 0 and 3 grammatical mistakes, I'm multiplying your score by 1. Okay, if you have between 4 and 7, I'm multiplying your score by 0.9. Okay, so there is no grammar category. Instead, it's a multiplier. Okay, so if you have proper grammar, which you should, you're just getting your score multiplied by 1. So it's not changing. Does that make sense? Okay, so my advice is, you've got 4 people, have all 4 people look over it, But I'm not telling you what to do there. So, any questions? Boom. 5 is certainly okay. I think there's around 30 people in the class. 5 is okay. Any other questions? All right. So I'll go ahead and give you guys a couple minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Give you guys